Hi, everybody. I'm CSProfessor Pam from PamTech, and this is another one of my React videos. Let's learn React one byte at a time. And what we are going to understand today is how to deal with input from a text box. It's a very foundational thing to make sure that you understand how to do. And again, I'm CSProfessor Pam, and I can help you level up your problem-solving and coding skills with my YouTube videos, my Discord community, and project-based coaching. All right, so let's kind of talk through what we're going to do. We're going to do a very simple thing that I already have an example of it here. Not a lot of styling. What I have here is a text box, and if I type my name in here and click the button, then you see that I have a message, right? And whatever I type in here and click the button, that message changes to that, right? So we want to figure out how to do this. And there are a number of moving parts going on here. Everything in JavaScript, React has to do with thinking about what you want to happen, what is the action that you want to happen, what event triggers that action, and typically you also have to think about where is your data being stored. All right, so it might not be obvious, but when we look at this, the very first thing that needs to happen is as I'm typing into this text box, I need to capture that user input and store it somewhere. And where we typically store it is in state. All right, we're going to talk through all this, but first of all, let me start building this for you. So I am creating a new component that I am calling hello. All right. No, sorry, not hello. I'm going to actually make a new component. And my new component is going to be called welcome. So let me go in here, make a folder for it. And I'm going to make welcome.jsx. I'm not going to do any styling, so I won't do the CSS right now. Let's RFCE. And let's, first of all, place this component on our app. The last video, I was doing something with map. I'm going to comment this out. I just want to focus on my welcome component. So let's make sure to import it. And let's make sure we can see it. Now, did I start up my, no, I haven't started up yet. So, oh yeah, I have. I'm running on 5173. So let me start up my local host. All right, so we see our welcome component here, right? Always have your inspector up so you can see what's going on. And the only thing that we're seeing is just the word welcome, because that's all that's in there right now, right? So the first thing is we have to build this user interface. I need a text box that I'm going to type into, and I need a button that I'm going to click, and then I need a place for the output, okay? So let's go in here, and we're going to set up an input. Now, sometimes when you do an input, you put it in a form, but we're going to keep this one very simple. We don't need to do that here because we just have one input and we just have this button that's going to trigger the action. So I'm going to say, enter your name. So we have that. Then I want to set up a button. I'm going to have it say hello. And then I'm going to place maybe an H3. So I'm going to say my output goes here. But right now, that's all we'll put there. All right, so you can see what we have right now. All right, so I have a place where I can type into. Now, we have to think about what we want to do. As I'm typing in here, you know, if I start typing my name, Pam, and I type my P, I don't know if that's the last letter of what I'm going to type in or the only letter of what I want to type in. So every time I'm typing into this text box, potentially that is the end of all of my input. And so I have to deal with it on every time I do that. So we need to understand what event is triggered as I am typing into a text box. So JavaScript has a number of events. We've talked about the onClick that happens, and we're going to use that one in a second. But typically when you are changing input, the event that gets triggered is onChange. And remember, in React, we have to camel case this. So we'll have to have a capital C in there. So let's test this out. Now, I'm going to have some action I want to do when this event happens. And so typically you need to create a function to process that action. So I'm going to create a function that I'm going to call handle input. And right now I don't know what parameters it has. I'm just going to set it up like this. And I'm going to console log typing, just so I know it's connected. And I want this event to trigger when the input in this text box changes. So let's see if they are connected, okay? So let's clear my console, clear this. If I start typing, you see, every time I'm typing into this text box, that function handle input is being executed, right? Now, the other thing that's important to know about events like this is there is an event object that gets triggered or gets created when an event is triggered. So this handle input function actually has a parameter, which is that event object. And typically I just call it E. It's a parameter, right? Now, it might seem a little funny. I don't have to pass anything to it here. That object is automatically passed by JavaScript. So let's see what is in that event object, right? I'm going to refresh everything here. So I type in a letter, and you see, we see the word typing. And here is this event object with a lot of stuff in it. But look at this thing called target. Target says input. And you see when I hover over it, it's that input. So it's saying this is the input that was changed, right? And if I open this up, there's something in here called value. And look at what the value is. It's the P that I typed in. And if I type in another letter, then let's look, you see, it got triggered again. Here is target. What's in value? PA. So e.target.value has the user input, right? I'm going to give myself a comment. e.target.value has user input in text box. So we need a state to hold this user input. I'm going to call it your name, set your name. React.useState, it's an empty string to start with, right? So every time I type in and this event gets triggered, what do I need to do? I need to store the user input into state. So that means I need to set your name to e.target.value, right? As a matter of fact, in here, I'm going to console log e.target.value so we can see. All right, let's clear all this. Let's start typing. And you see, with each letter that was triggered, first it had just P, then PA, then PAM. And if we go look at state, so I go to my welcome component here. You see here, the state, if I type in the rest of my name, Pamela, as I type in, you see there's a little bit of a lag, but this state is being updated so that it always has whatever is the current state of the user input in there, right? And look, if this does not 100% make sense, it's like a formula. E.target.value, if you make the parameter name E, is where the user in the text box input is going to be. All right, now what do I want to do though? When I'm ready to generate the message, I'm going to click this button. Again, the action is I click the button. I'm going to want something to happen. So let's make a function that is going to get called when I click that button. So I'm going to call that function say hello. And I'm just going to type hello in here. And I want this function to be called when this button is clicked, right? You click this button, we are going to call say hello. So let's see that that is working, right? If I click this, I need to go back to console, right? So that is where I'm going to go when I click that button, okay? So what do I want to do? I want to generate output message, right? We're going to set up a state for that as well. I'm going to call it message, set message. Empty string, right? So here where it says output goes here, instead of that, I'm going to put message. And so initially, we won't see anything because that message state is empty, right? So we're going to type something in here. We're going to click the button. And what I want to do is assign hello and that name to message so that I will see it on my component, because anytime this state changes, then the component will be re-rendered. So I want my message here, when I click the button, I want to set message to, and let's use backticks to make it easier to generate my message. I'm going to say hello. And then where is the data of the name? It is in that state called your name, right? I mean, I can put whatever I want to here. I can say, how are you today? So I click the button, right? If I change the name to something else, and click the button. So as I'm typing in, right, let's go look at components again. You'll see the state has whatever is the name, and what's in the other state is the message that got generated when you click the button, right? It's very important to connect the dots of where these different pieces of code go, right? Now, there's a couple more things that I want to just finish this up with. So for one thing, once I've said hello to Joe here, I probably want to clear out this text box, okay? So here, after I set this message, I would like to clear the text box, right? It's always really good if you can write the comment first of what it is that you want to do. So what I can do, I need to basically clear out the text box, and the text box is storing what is in name. If I set your name to an empty string, I have to do two things. I do that, but this text box, I also need to set value to your name, right? Remember, that's the state. And remember, value is what you're seeing in the text box. So if I change your name to an empty string, And if I assign that to value here, then that is going to clear out the text box. You need those two things together, right? So I put in a new name. I click this. And do you see here that the name went away? And it happened when I clicked the button because that's where I put the code. So I set the state to empty, and I have that state connected to that particular input. Okay, again, this is like a recipe that you should remember. All right, the other thing that I want to do is I want to show you one more important thing. Let's just look at this handle input. That console log was just for testing purposes. It really is just this one line of code, right? Why should I have a separate function to do one line of code? Why can't I just call this in my onChange? I can, let me actually do this way so we can see both of them. I'm going to comment that one out, but I'll have to do it this way. So what is this code? I'm going to grab this code right here and put it in here, but that's not going to work. Matter of fact, it makes everybody unhappy. And that's because of an important rule to understand. If the function that you want to execute has a parameter that needs to be passed to it, then you must use arrow function syntax. And we need to put that E parameter in here. This say hello function does not have any input that I need to pass to it. So that's why I can call it or attach it this way. But for this one, I need this arrow function syntax. And let's just see if this is still working. I click the button, right? Again, if I look over here, if I start typing in here, you'll see with each letter that I type, that is being stored in my state. So with every time this input changes, we are taking whatever is currently in that input and assigning that to this state. And then once you actually click the button, that calls the function say hello, which generates a new message, changes the message state, and that's why the component re-renders. All right. And if I wanted to, let's just do one more thing. If I wanted to clear the message out, I would need to have another button to do that, right? So let's just add that really quick. Again, we're not going to do any styling. This is going to look a little ugly. All right, first we need to add the button. Here's the button. And what do I want to do? We can actually do this here as well. We can say onClick. When I click this button, what do I want to do? I want to set message to an empty string. But again, because this function, because I need to pass it something, I need to use arrow function syntax, right? And so now I click say hello, I click clear, and the message clears out, right? So we've learned quite a few things in just this little bit of code. We've talked about, we're using state. So we're reinforcing, remember we talked about state. And remember, anytime you change state or assign state, then your component re-renders anything that's using that component. And we have seen how sometimes you might need an onChange event. Sometimes you might need an onClick event. That's why it's very important before you start coding to be able to clearly say what you want to do, right? As a matter of fact, I should have put a comment in here that says, when button is clicked, generate output message, right, with your name. And so we have two pieces of state that we're modifying. We've seen how to set a state back to an empty string. To clear out the input, we need to assign that state to value. And anytime you are attaching a function that is taking a parameter, you have to use arrow function syntax in order to do that. All right, so that is your byte of React for now. One thing I haven't been doing, let me actually do this now. I want to stop my terminal down here, Control C. And we haven't done this a lot, so this is going to be a lot that I need to update in GitHub. But remember, what I always like to do is git status, and it tells me anything in red is stuff that has changed. I have unsaved changes. So I'm going to then do git add dot. If I do git status again, and I see everything in green, that means we're ready to take a picture or do commit. So I'm going to do git commit -m, and I'm just going to say updating repo. Usually you need a more specific thing, but I've actually made a lot of changes here over these videos. And then if I do git status again, you'll see that all is clean, but I need to push these changes to GitHub. So I do git push origin main, push this main branch to origin. And if we go take a look, if I go take a look at my GitHub, then let me get my code real quick so I can, here we go. So let's look at first React. And you see there's 3 commits. There's the last one that I just did, updating repo. And you see all the different things that I've done in here. All right. So I hope that helps you understand how to deal with the text box. Now, if you have multiple inputs, there's some other things we need to do. But as long as you're doing kind of simple one input, this will allow you to get started on that. All right. So that's your byte for now. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you learned a lot. Please like and subscribe if you haven't already. Share this video. And please leave me some comments about what you think about the video. If you ever have any questions, or if you have other topics that you would like me to make videos on, I'm more than happy to get that input. I really appreciate input like that. All right, so what I want you to do is keep coding and keep learning. See you next time.